Hello fans, the story of the Soul Land, Season 2, all of you. Welcome to the Samling Nidian channel. Today, meet Admin, who made the audio video of the sequel to Donghua, in the 64th episode. But in the novel, it is in the 208th chapter. Let's listen to all the entertainment. Hui Yuhao shook his head and replied, "No, this isn't considered any contribution. Without the academy, there's no me. Elder Xian, how are you?" Elder Xian smiled upon seeing the deep affection in his eyes, and replied, "I'm good. Your compatriots are also fine. Tell me what went on today. I didn't expect that the Dragon Emperor Dolua Long Xiaoyao was still alive." Hui Yuhao recounted how he had extorted Jing Hongchen, and how he had expected the journey back not to be a smooth one after he managed to reach an agreement with him. He also explained how he had met Long Xiaoyao and Zhang Peng along the way, as well as how he made the bet with Long Xiaoyao. After hearing his account, Elder Xian was stunned. He was clearly aware of the cultivation of an ultimate Dolua. Even though Hui Yuhao was given a huge advantage in the bet, it was still a miracle that he could win a bet against Long Xiaoyao, given his age. However, Elder Xian also couldn't help but furrow his brow. The reappearance of the Dragon Emperor Dolua, as well as his standing opposite Shrek, was definitely not good news. After sighing, Elder Xian muttered to himself, "Elder Mu. Only after you left did I realize how heavy the responsibility of the Hallmaster of the Sea God's Pavilion is. It would be great if you were still around. It's not just all sorts of evil spirits that have appeared. Even your old friend, the Dragon Emperor Dolua, has resurfaced." Hui Yuhao asked, "Elder Xian, what conflict did the Dragon Emperor Dolua have with Teacher?" Elder Xian replied, "They have a deep-seated conflict with each other. They aren't just opponents and friends, they were love rivals too." As he spoke, Elder Xian unleashed his Class 8 flying-type soul tool and increased his flying speed sharply. He reduced the depletion of his soul power, and his soul power protected both him and Hui Yuhao. He had a reminiscing look in his eyes. Elder Mu came from the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon bloodline that has been around for tens of thousands of years. The Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon can transform into a radiant holy dragon and become the best martial soul in the world. Elder Mu was one who benefited from this transformation. When he was 6 years old, he completed the awakening of his martial soul and was greatly nurtured by his family. Shrek Academy shares close relationships with many Soul Master aristocrats on the continent. The Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragons are naturally included. The legacy of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragons has been passed down for ages. One of the founders of Shrek Academy was one of them. Tens of thousands of years ago, they were once attacked, and it almost led to the destruction of their legacy. Although this legacy was indeed passed down, there weren't many who can inherit it. In every generation, there is only one person who inherits the legacy. The leader of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragons came to our academy and suggested that Elder Mu be admitted to the academy earlier. The academy agreed after weighing things. That's why Elder Mu entered the academy when he was only 8 years old. At that point, his soul power had already reached rank 20. No one has been able to break his record since then. 10 years later, Elder Mu captained Team Shrek in the Elite Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Soul Dueling Tournament. At that point, Elder Mu had reached rank 69 even though he was just 18 years old. He was only one step away from breaking the bottleneck and obtaining a martial soul true body. This was undoubtedly a shocking achievement. Even though the current Shrek 7 Monsters were very outstanding, and 3 of them even had twin martial souls, none of them were at Elder Mu's standard. Bei Bei and Su Sancher were only at rank 63 and rank 64. Furthermore, they were already 20 years old. Elder Xian continued, "During that tournament, Elder Mu met Long Xiaoyao and another young woman soul master for the first time. Elder Mu's martial soul was the Radiant Holy Dragon, while Long Xiaoyao's martial soul coincidentally directly conflicted with his. Long Xiaoyao possessed the darkness holy dragon, which is also a martial soul that forms after a transformation. It was always very difficult to tell whether light or darkness would win. The two of them could only fight using their cultivation. At that point, Elder Mu's soul power was slightly superior, and he defeated Long Xiaoyao in the finals. At that point in time, the only female soul master that could match up to the both of them was called Yi Shishui. She was ravishing, and her abilities were also very strong. After that fight, the three of them learned to respect one another. Eventually, Elder Mu led Shrek Academy to victory. Long Xiaoyao's academy were the runners-up, while Yi Shishui's team was among the top 4. After the tournament, I'm not sure what happened after they graduated from their respective academies. I only know that Elder Mu, Long Xiaoyao, and Yi Shishui bumped into each other after he graduated. The three of them slowly became close friends after they challenged one another. They sparred, cultivated, and traveled the continent together. They were budding young talents at that point in time, and they were also very competitive. Each of them hoped to trump the other two in his or her ability. Although they were close friends, they were also close competitors. They did some things that shocked the world of Soul Masters then, and their abilities improved significantly. Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao also developed feelings for Yi Shishui. Perhaps it was because they were friends, or maybe it was because both of them wanted to completely beat the other party before they confessed their feelings, but neither of them confessed to Yi Shishui. In the blink of an eye, 10 years passed, and they became 8-ringed soul Duluos. They were even on their way to becoming titled Duluos before they were 30 years old. At that point, Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao couldn't control their feelings anymore. However, they were very close, and didn't want to hurt each other. But they didn't want to give up either. That's why they gave the final choice to Yi Shishui. That day, they went to find Yi Shishui together and confessed at the same time. Yi Shishui was asked to choose between the both of them. However, she had feelings for both of them. Their cultivations and personalities were similar, so there wasn't any way for her to choose. That's why Yi Shishui proposed that they fight a year later, and she would date the winner. Seriously? Hui Yuhao was shocked as he asked, "Matters of the heart can be decided in this manner?" Elder Xian glanced at him with a meaningful look in his eyes and replied, "You might get into such a situation one day." This matter even motivated a tradition in Shrek Academy. Who won the fight a year later? Hui Yuhao asked. Elder Xian answered, "No one." What? Hui Yuhao was confused as he looked at him. Elder Xian sighed and said, "That's because neither of them went." After they separated that day, Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao pondered over the matter deeply. Eventually, their yearning for love didn't win over their rationality. They were both aware that their cultivations were too similar. If they went all out, both parties would only be hurt. However, they were friends and even brothers. That's why they both made a logical and self-proclaimed wise decision, giving up. However, they each didn't expect the other to make the same choice. Their common choice also hurt Yi Shishui. Yi Shishui waited at the rendezvous spot for 3 days, but neither of them appeared. She was a very proud person, and stormed off in a fury. Both Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao believed that Yi Shishui was with the other person. They decided to focus on their cultivation after moping for a period of time. They didn't look for each other because they didn't want to be reminded of their sad past. In the blink of an eye, 10 more years passed. Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao formed their own families. At this point, Yi Shishui came to Shrek Academy suddenly to find Elder Mu. They were all titled Dolua at that point in time. Elder Mu was engulfed by emotions as he saw Yi Shishui again and didn't know what to say. However, he didn't expect Yi Shishui to suggest a challenge. Although he was confused, he had no choice, and was forced by her to accept the challenge. When they broke up 11 years ago, Yi Shishui's cultivation was inferior to both Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao's. However, she was now extremely strong after she returned to find Elder Mu. Elder Mu was almost on the brink of losing as he fought her. However, he had a solid foundation, and emerged victorious using his sovereign's descent. He was shocked to realize that Yi Shishui's martial soul now carried an evil aura. Elder Mu's teacher, who was also my grandmaster, was the hallmaster of the Sea God's Pavilion then. He pointed out that Yi Shishui had become an evil soul master. He wanted to make her stay and cripple her cultivation. Even though Elder Mu had a family, Yi Shishui was still a very memorable person from his past. He pleaded on her behalf and hoped that Grandmaster could let her go. However, the Grandmaster didn't listen to Elder Mu's pleas, as he believed that she was too dangerous given her cultivation. He kept her in Shrek Academy, but didn't do anything to her because of Elder Mu. However, nobody knew that a bunch of evil soul masters would appear a few days later. They were led by an extremely strong evil soul master, and fought against my grandmaster. Both sides suffered heavy losses, but the strongest evil soul master was dealt a lethal blow. The only downside was that Yi Shishui was rescued. Before Yi Shishui left, she gave Elder Mu a hateful look. From then on, Elder Mu became very depressed. He didn't understand why Yi Shishui became like that. Not only did she become an evil soul master, but she was even mixed in with a bunch of evil soul masters. Furthermore, my grandmaster was critically hurt, which broke the last bit of fancy Elder Mu had towards her. Elder Mu accompanied my grandmaster until he recovered from his injuries. After that, he was very eager to find Long Xiaoyao to get to the bottom of why Yi Shishui ended up in this state. At that point in time, he was filled with rage. When Elder Mu found him, the anger that he had suppressed erupted. Before Long Xiaoyao could even explain, he already attacked him. The battle between the twin holy dragons of black and white resulted in a slight victory for Elder Mu, but their cultivations were still around the same. On account of their brotherly ties, Elder Mu decided to spare Long Xiaoyao. After the fight, Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao talked about what had happened over the past 10 years. They were shocked to realize that they had both made the same decision. Elder Mu also understood why Yi Shishui came to Shrek Academy to challenge him. They both understood her character, and they felt very guilty towards her. My grandmaster was hurt because of Yi Shishui. Although he regained his health, he was never able to recover completely. After Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao discussed things, they decided to find Yi Shishui. Regardless of what had happened, they needed to clarify things with her. That was how the twin holy dragons of black and white resurfaced in the continent. They were both titled Doluos then, and they possessed immense abilities and martial souls. Their reputations rose, and that was how their twin holy dragons title were established. That was also how they became known as the Dragon God Dolua and the Dragon Emperor Dolua. Hui Yuhao felt like he was returning to the past as Elder Xian related this story. He could completely imagine the two titled Dolua causing an uproar on the continent. When can I become a titled Dolua? That was basically the dream of every soul master. Hui Yuhao was dragged back to reality as he sighed. Elder Xian looked a little upset. They searched the continent for years, and finally found her. They almost couldn't recognize her when they found her. She was only 30-some years old, but her hair was grayish-white, as if she were a 40 or 50-year-old woman. Not only did she appear much more haggard, but she was also engulfed by a very sharp and vicious evil aura. Grandmaster's worry was realized. Yi Shishui's abilities were way beyond the expectations of Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao. When she saw the two of them again, she immediately attacked them. The shocking twin holy dragons of black and white were on the losing end after they were attacked by her. Even when they combined their powers, they still seemed a little lacking. They were horrified to find out that Yi Shishui's abilities had already reached the level of a transcendent Dolua. The abilities of a transcendent evil soul master were unimaginable. The two of them were no match for her at all. They were eventually defeated badly, and critically hurt. However, she didn't kill them. She interrogated them and demanded to know why they had humiliated her. Yi Shishui was a very proud person. She believed they had both abandoned her. The humiliation she felt caused the change in her. Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao laughed bitterly as they looked at each other. They recounted what they had thought then. Yi Shishui didn't believe them at the start, but they were already on the verge of death then, and couldn't possibly lie. Yi Shishui's emotions changed drastically, and she saved the both of them. After 20 years apart, the three of them sat together once again. However, their friendship wasn't as close as before. Yi Shishui told them that the person who went to save her at Shrek Academy was her husband. After her husband returned, he died from his injuries. Before her husband died, he poured half of his cultivation into her, which pushed her to becoming a transcendent Dolua-level evil soul master. Elder Mu didn't expect things to reach such a stage, and was stunned for a moment. A combination of factors caused the initial misunderstanding to evolve into such a state. This was something none of them could have expected. Long Xiaoyao asked Yi Shishui why she became an evil soul master. She told them that she was enraged when neither of them came and decided to cultivate tirelessly before seeking them out to avenge her humiliation. However, she went mad because she was too impatient. At that point in time, she met her future husband, who was a powerful evil soul master. His name was Zhongli. After he saved her, he forced her to have a relationship with him and guided his evil powers into her martial soul. This caused a transformation in Yi Shishui's martial soul, and she became an evil soul master. She hated Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao, but she also hated her husband. She believed that the three of them had ruined her life, when in fact, everything that happened to her was because of her pride. Since things had reached such a stage, Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao didn't know what to do. Yi Shishui wasn't the same person as before, and their feelings for her had changed. She didn't kill them, but made them take an oath. From that point on, they could no longer call each other brothers. 10 years later, they had to fight to the death at the exact place where they were supposed to fight before. Only one could survive. Otherwise, she would kill their entire families. As they had no choice, Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao took this oath. Although they could tell that Yi Shishui's personality had changed, their guilt and past feelings for Yi Shishui forced them to accede to her request. Elder Mu told me that both he and Long Xiaoyao blamed each other then. If neither of them had given up, things wouldn't have reached that stage. 10 years later, the twin holy dragons met again. They fought intensely under Yi Shishui's eyes. Eventually, both of them were critically hurt. However, something strange happened to Yi Shishui then. She didn't look as old and haggard as before, but as ravishing as how she looked in the past. Since neither of them could kill the other, she set another fight 10 years later. This carried on, and both Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao were already 100 years old after a few decades. They had become transcendent Dolua too. At that point, Yi Shishui disappeared. She sent news that this fight would be their last, and only one would survive. Otherwise, she would destroy the entire continent. Yi Shishui was already at rank 98 then. Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao weren't her match. The two of them realized that Yi Shishui had seen through their ploy, critically hurting one another without killing each other in their fights. After 100 years, the twin holy dragons' feelings for her had deepened once again. Elder Mu told me that Yi Shishui was the only woman he had ever truly loved in his life. This was also the same for Long Xiaoyao. In fact, both of them were powerful enough to deploy people to kill Yi Shishui. However, they didn't do so. Yi Shishui also understood their feelings for her. In the last message she sent them, she told them that she had already put down the hatred she had for them. However, she could only be with the winner. This was also their last punishment. The person who won could marry her. At that point in time, Elder Mu and Long Xiaoyao's wives had already passed away. Elder Xian sighed again as he stopped speaking for a minute. Hui Yuhao asked hurriedly, who was the eventual winner? Elder Xian shook his head and said, there wasn't any winner. They didn't fight that last battle. Before it could take place, Elder Mu and Du Buxi's brother fought very intensely, and he was irreversibly hurt in the process. That fight took place the day before he was to fight Long Xiaoyao. According to Elder Mu, Du Buxi's brother was sent there by Long Xiaoyao. After he was hurt so badly, Elder Mu took many years to restore his vitality. However, he couldn't return to his glory days as the radiant holy dragon, and became just like how you knew him. From then on, Long Xiaoyao never appeared again. Elder Mu believed that he was together with Yi Shishui. Hui Yuhao was furious. Long Xiaoyao was so despicable. He still dares to call teacher his brother? Elder Xian replied calmly, it's hard to judge something like this. I guess only Long Xiaoyao knows what happened. I didn't expect that he would reappear after 100 years. I don't know if Yi Shishui is still alive. Evil soul masters are unlikely to live past 200 years old. I'm afraid that he might have been influenced by her and become an evil soul master as well. If that's the case, it's going to be a disaster. Hui Yuhao shook his head and answered, I don't think he has. When I fought him just now and used Teacher's Sovereign's Descent, I clashed with his spiritual power. I could tell that it was as vast as the starry sky. However, there weren't any characteristics of an evil soul master within it. Hui Yuhao's spiritual power was very sensitive even though his cultivation wasn't high. Furthermore, he was also a necromancer. He firmly believed that his senses weren't wrong. Elder Xian said, that's great. However, Long Xiaoyao was obviously here on behalf of the illustrious Virtue Hall. There was also the Scorpion Tiger Dolua, Zhang Peng. This is very unusual. Long Xiaoyao's from the Heavenly Soul Empire, he shouldn't be mixing with those from the Sun Moon Empire. If he's really being used by the Sun Moon Empire, it means huge trouble. Hui Yuhao suddenly thought of a possibility. Elder Xian, do you think that the Dragon Emperor Dolua has something to do with the Holy Ghost Church that we discovered? Perhaps it was even created by the Sun Moon Empire? Elder Xian furrowed his brow and said, impossible. I noticed that Long Xiaoyao still cares about his brotherly ties with Elder Mu. Otherwise, all of you would have perished long before we reached you. I don't think there's anyone capable of challenging the Dragon Emperor Dolua in a duel. Not even Du Buxi can match up to him. Hui Yuhao said, I feel like this Dragon Emperor Dolua is one who cherishes promises. He came for the rare and valuable materials I snagged. However, he decided to give up after he lost. Can we exploit this aspect of his personality? Elder Xian shook his head and replied, the Dragon Emperor Dolua has been around for 200 years. He won't be that easy to deal with. However, I'm certain that he won't attack Shrek Academy. Initially, he received Grandmaster's guidance when he was acquainted with Elder Mu, and also spent some time in Shrek Academy. The Academy can be considered his benefactor. As long as he doesn't become an evil soul master, I won't think he's one to repay kindness with ingratitude. Find new stories on nov/elbin.com. After ascertaining the Dragon Emperor Dolua's background, Hui Yuhao felt a little heavy-hearted, like time and tide waited for no man. He was a very long way away from the abilities of the truly strong individuals. After Elder Mu passed, Shrek's strongest individual was now Elder Xian. With Elder Xian's rank 98 abilities as a transcendent Dolua, he was strong enough to terrorize almost anyone. However, Du Buxi's and Long Xiaoyao's appearances shook Shrek Academy's stability greatly. Hui Yuhao desired to contribute his strength to ensure the safety of the academy. However, he knew that he wasn't strong enough. The only way he could reach that level was to cultivate tirelessly. Shrek City slowly came into view. Hui Yuhao also focused his thoughts, as he was about to return home. This welcoming feeling also alleviated the anxiety that he'd felt. He clenched his fists as he saw the majestic city wall in the distance. He still had a long way to go, but he needed to take it steadily, step by step. A storm was brewing on the continent, and the only thing he could do was become more powerful. It was only a few months until the elite Continental Advanced Soul Master Soul Dueling Tournament. This time, the tournament was going to be held in the Sun Moon Empire. Without a doubt, this was going to be another intense tournament. He and his compatriots were going to be the main forces of Shrek Academy this time, and they were even going to compete as Shrek 7 Monsters. Everything started long ago defending Shrek's glory. Under Elder Xian's leadership, their group landed a few miles away from Shrek City. The defenses of Shrek City were pretty resolute. Even those from the city didn't dare to fly above it, lest it leads to misunderstandings, and this also applied to Shrek Academy members. As Soul Tools developed, all sorts of defense-type Soul Tools had been installed in Shrek City and Shrek Academy. The few miles that they had to walk was nothing to their group. When Hui Yuhao saw the gate to Shrek Academy, he started to tear up. To him, this wasn't just an academy that had educated and nurtured him. It was his home. When he had left the Duke's mansion, he had told himself that he was an orphan from that point onwards. His mother had passed away, and he could only rely on himself. Shrek Academy was the place that had given him warmth, nurtured him into a talent, given him strength, and made him one of the best among those of the same age. He missed Shrek and everyone from Shrek right now. Everyone can return to rest. Yuhao, you can stay in the Sea God's Pavilion temporarily. I'll arrange a place for you to live after the activities end in a few days. The dormitory that you had on the Sea God's Island has been allocated to someone else, Elder Xian told Hui Yuhao. Activities? What activities? Hui Yuhao was confused. Yan Xiaozhe could tell what he was thinking, and smiled. Silly kid, have you forgotten? It's time for the inner courtyard test for the outer courtyard students. Hui Yuhao only remembered that after Yan Xiaozhe mentioned it. There was an entrance test for Shrek Academy's inner courtyard every year. It was targeted towards students of the senior grades in the outer courtyard. There were also other talented students from other academies that wanted to enter Shrek Academy's inner courtyard. They could use this chance to join the test with recommendations from their academies. If they passed, they could become a part of Shrek Academy's inner courtyard. However, it was very difficult for students from other academies to pass this test, as Shrek Academy's Martial Soul Department was the best on the continent. If there were even 1 or 2 students from other academies that passed, it was considered very good. Most of the time, no outside students would make it in. When Hui Yuhao first entered Shrek Academy, he had once wondered when it would be his turn to take the test to enter the inner courtyard. However, he was already a part of the Sea God's Pavilion now, even though he was only 17 years old. Dean Yan, do you want me to take the test too? Hui Yuhao said almost immediately. He was itching to take the test. Yan Xiaozhe gave him a weird expression and laughed. Why? Do you want to strut your abilities in front of the rest of the students? You can if you want to. As he said this, Elder Xian and the other elders couldn't help but laugh. They had watched Hui Yuhao grow up. Hui Yuhao was Elder Mu's closed-door disciple, and a core figure among the new generation of Shrek 7 Monsters. If he couldn't pass the test, the ultimate soldier plan would be considered a failure. Hui Yuhao turned red, and weakly retorted, I'm only worried that the other students will find it unfair if I don't take the test. Elder Xian was amused as he replied, enough, you don't have to take any tests. The fact that you can win a bet against the Dragon Emperor Dolua already proves that you've passed the test. If I used that as a standard, no student would be able to pass the test, apart from you. There'll be another test for you, and it'll be more difficult than the inner courtyard test. You'll be in trouble then. Another test for me? What is it? Hui Yuhao asked curiously. Elder Xian's smile grew. You'll know when you know. Are you returning with us to the Sea God's Pavilion? Hui Yuhao shook his head and replied, no. I'd like to tour the academy since I've not been back for so long. All right. Elder Xian nodded and replied, your compatriots should know that you're back. Bei Bei and the rest are waiting for you at the Tang Sect. After you tour the academy, you can go and find them. All right. After passing a few more instructions to Hui Yuhao, Elder Xian disappeared as a streak of light. The rest of the elders and the two deans also left. After returning to the academy, they didn't have to worry about Hui Yuhao's safety anymore. Eldest senior and the rest are waiting for me at the Tang Sect? Then I should return to the Tang Sect first. As he thought of that point, Hui Yuhao didn't enter the academy, instead making his way into Shrek City. At this point, a figure sprinted out from Shrek Academy, moving quite rapidly. As he turned around, this figure had already reached in front of him. It was a woman with a tall and slender figure. She wore a white warrior's robe with silver strappings. Her hair was covered by a bandana, and she wore a veil. It was early spring now, and the fields around Shrek Academy were flat. The winds also blew stronger during this period of time, and thus it was very common for ladies to be wearing veils. For some reason, Hui Yuhao felt as if he had met this woman before. At this point, the bandana on the young lady's hair was blown off by the wind, and flew towards Hui Yuhao. He grabbed hold of the bandana subconsciously. At this instant, his entire body stiffened, and he couldn't shift his gaze away from that young woman. As the bandana was blown off, the young lady's pinkish-blue hair swayed with the wind as she made an exclamation of surprise. Her hair covered her entire back until it reached her hips, concealing the shape of her butt. As she turned back, her frantic-looking pinkish-blue eyes met Hui Yuhao's gaze. The moment that their eyes met, Hui Yuhao felt that his spirit had left his body. The familiarity he felt, the beautiful gaze and the excitement that came from the bottom of his heart made it difficult for him to control his emotions. He almost blurted out 3 words immediately, Goddess of Light. Yes. Why was she so familiar to Hui Yuhao? She looked exactly like the Goddess of Light. Hui Yuhao almost went up to pull down her veil. Hui Yuhao discovered that his voice was trembling. The young lady only panicked for an instant. She subconsciously used one hand to grab hold of her hair and extended her other hand towards Hui Yuhao. Her hand was white and long, and seemed very familiar. Indeed, she looked exactly the same as the Goddess of Light. Hui Yuhao felt his spirit screaming. Give it back. The young lady's voice was very pleasing to the ears, as if birds were singing. Hui Yuhao returned her bandana subconsciously. Before he had a chance to open his mouth, the young lady ran away with the bandana. A layer of golden light was subtly released from her body. By the time Hui Yuhao was able to react, he was only left with the memory of a delicate figure. The video in this episode is over, let's meet in the next episode. Before the end, Admin would like to clarify that this novel is not written by Admin, but Admin is quoted from a website called NovelBin. Please forgive the owner that I made this video because I like this story and want everyone who likes like me to hear the same. Thank you very much. God bless you.